fluorescent lights hummed like a distant engine, the kind of sound that settles into your bones and refuses to leave. Rachel sat very still at her desk, half a sandwich forgotten in a plastic container, the air around her heavy with the smell of wet paper and dust. Rain pounded the metal roof in a steady, violent rhythm. Each hit made the trailer shudder and sent a thin, metallic echo down the aisles of books. Water had already run in along the far shelves, darkening cardboard boxes and curling the edges of returned picture books. The room felt smaller than it should have, as if the storm had pressed itself into the walls and refused to move. She told herself it was the wind. When the door had creaked, she thought of the usual shelter seekers, stray shoppers, students caught without an umbrella bodies, leaning in to escape pothole-splashed streets. She had stood to check, expecting muddy boots and apologetic faces. Instead, there was only the way the light fell, a crooked strip across the back wall that looked unnaturally long. Because the floodlight outside was thrown at a different angle, the shadow there looked like something waiting. Rachel set the sandwich down and wiped her hands on her jeans. Her pulse had started to ratchet up in a way that made her palms sweat. The heat of the trailer and the sudden cold rush from the open doorway had thrown her senses off balance. She moved through the narrow lanes between shelves, fingertips trailing along spines to steady herself. The books felt damp under her touch, and each step made a soft thud against the warped linoleum. The light flickered once, twice, brief, stupid flashes that made the shadow twitch, as if whatever cast it were breathing. She told herself aloud, a little too loudly, "It's the trees, just the trees." Her voice sounded small, swallowed by the drum of the rain. The air smelled sharper now, metallic and green, like crushed leaves and storm water. Somewhere outside, a truck splashed through a puddle, and the sound reverberated through the walls. She slowed as she reached the back cabinet where the shadow pooled. The cabinet door was a sliver ajar, a black mouth in the array of shelves. For a heartbeat, she imagined a face, then scolded herself for letting her imagination go wild. The trailer offered little privacy. Everyone knew everyone's comings and goings. In this part of Suva, people didn't quietly loiter in a municipal library, especially in a storm. She put a hand on the cold metal of the cabinet handle. The metal was slick with condensation. Her fingers trembled just as she bent to peer in. The lights dipped, an agonizing slow crawl toward gloom that made the books look like anonymous shapes. She took a breath, the air tasting of ozone and dust, and reached for the handle again. Something shifted behind her, subtle at first, the fraction of a movement, a sound like fabric sliding over fabric. It might have been the flap of a jacket, the scrape of wet soles. For a moment, she thought it was nothing at all. Then hands closed around her from behind hard. Sudden, a grip that wrapped both arms and pulled her backward. Her sandwich dropped and slapped the desk with a small, ridiculous sound. The scream tore out of her not as a choice, but as reflex, raw and high. She spun. Every muscle burned with the effort, stinging from the surprise, and froze. Joy stood there, wet hair plastered to his forehead, rain streaks down his shirt, eyes dark and unblinking. He was so close the scent of rain and something sharper, metal, maybe hit her face. He smiled, but it wasn't a smile that reached his eyes. It was something else entirely, patient, and finally here. You shouldn't have left me, he said quietly, as if finishing a conversation they had both somehow lost. Joy was the sort of person who debugged problems with the same calm patience. He used to untangle a knotted headphone wire in his early 30s. He worked in tech in Kolkata, steady job, sensible shoes, a closet that contained more smart shirts than wild ideas. He brewed his tea at exactly 7:15 every morning, loved Miss Tai Doi after a long day, and could recite whole movie dialogues in the exact way his friends back home liked to mimic. People called him sweet because he meant it. Small, thoughtful things, a message at noon asking if she'd eaten, remembering a tiny birthday, came naturally to him. But in India, when you pass 30 and aren't married, the world develops a chorus. It began as family banter. His mother's gentle pokes over the phone, aunties at family gatherings with the same question, and a double helping of gossip. Son, when will you settle down? The chorus would sing at family gatherings as if a life could be neatly ticked off with checkboxes. The pressure wasn't mean so much as persistent and affectionate nagging that pushed him into searching in places he might never have looked. So Joy tried the modern routes: profiles, long profiled messages, awkward coffee dates that fizzled. He sought companions the way he solved problems, methodically, with a quiet hope. He did not expect his heart to latch onto a name so foreign it felt like a postcard from another world. Rachel's picture arrived in his messages like a small sunbeam. A librarian in Suva who loved rainy days and recommended books with the same shy certainty Joy admired in people who loved words. Their chats started as casual exchanges about novels and library quirks, then turned into nightly routines where they traded little details. The way she described the smell of a rainy street in Fiji, the way he complained about Kolkata's potholes. She told him about stacks of returned picture books and makeshift trailer libraries. He sent photographs of mango-stained streets and tea stalls. He joked about the improbability of it all to his sister once. Out of 1.3 billion people, my heart found a librarian on a tiny island in the South Pacific, and they laughed until it sounded like disbelief and delight wrapped together. It felt impossibly cute to him, like discovering a favorite song on the radio in a language you barely knew, then humming it until it became yours. So when his chest tightened at the thought of losing the friendship, when he imagined a life missing her messages, it wasn't melodrama so much as the honest ache of someone who'd finally found a small, bright thing he didn't want to let go. Little did Joy know then that the next beat of that heart would pull him farther than a coffee date or a phone call, all the way toward a trailer, library in Suva, and a girl named Rachel. Rachel's no wasn't sudden. It had been building like the slow wetting of a rain-fed road. She had read Joy's message 3 times before answering, each reading making her chest tighter. He had put a condition she hadn't expected. Marry me, move to India, but I won't come to Fiji. To anyone else, that might have sounded simple. To Rachel, it sounded like walking away from everything that held her family together. She was the only steady income in a house that breathed around her paycheck. Her mother's hands trembled with arthritis and could not manage market crowds. Her father's chest rattled with a sickness that demanded hospital visits and medicine. Her younger sister was halfway through university and still needed tuition, stationery, the small, ordinary costs that kept dreams afloat. Every souvicent she earned paid for groceries, clinic bills, and the occasional protector against uncertainty. Losing that income would mean 1,000 small collapses at once. There were practical barriers too. Work in India wasn't a simple transfer. She would need permission to leave her job, a visa to enter his country, and some place to belong in a land where she had no family and little community. She pictured herself alone in Kolkata, an island among millions, while her own family struggled back home. The thought of her father sick, with no one nearby to take him to the clinic, tightened her throat. Then there was the way Joy framed it. A rule instead of a question. It wasn't merely about distance, it was about choice. Asking her to uproot as the only breadwinner and saying he wouldn't come to Fiji felt like an ultimatum that ignored the quiet, heavy responsibilities she carried. She loved him in the small, steady way she loved books. Careful, hopeful, afraid to dog-ear the pages. But love, she had learned, did not pay a hospital bill. When she finally wrote back, she was gentle because she was honest. Joy, she typed, fingers shaking. I care about you. I'm sorry. I can't leave my family. I can't promise to move to India. If we marry, I would be abandoning them. She tried to say it kindly. She didn't want to throw away the friendship that had grown between messages and late-night recommendations. The last thing she wanted was to become the person who took warmth away from someone who had given her so much. When Rachel's eyes opened, the bright hospital light felt like a question. Her head throbbed in gentle, rhythmical pulses, memory leaking back in shards. The rain, the grip, the scream. She turned, expecting the gaunt, rain-streaked face she had imagined in the trailer, the man who had come so far and whose name had been a splinter under her tongue. Instead, a familiar, sober face leaned in over the tray table. Her manager, Isaac, hair damp where rain had splashed him, concern furrowing his brow. For a second, the two faces overlapped in her mind. Joy's imagined desperation smeared by the steady, practical lines of a man who signed off leave forms and scheduled staff rotas. Her relief was immediate and sharp. Her brain, raw and frightened, had filled the dark with the person she feared most. It had been a phantom of panic. Rachel, Isaac said, voice careful and steady. You gave us a fright. We called an ambulance from the library. Are you all right? The nurse filled in the rest. Someone found her unconscious after the incident in the trailer. They'd brought her in. Joy had been here briefly and had left a card, but he'd gone before she woke. The little card sat on the bedside table in Rachel's memory, like a thin, accusing thing. She clutched at the blanket and let the nausea of shame and fear rise, soft and hot. When the doctors cleared her, she wanted nothing more than to be out in the air, to feel the city's rain on her face and the solid, ordinary bustle of people who asked ordinary questions. Discharge paperwork was a bureaucratic blur. Isaac insisted on arranging transport, on making sure someone would be with her. He gave her a look that meant more than any bureaucratic duty. "Look after yourself," he said without words as soon as she was home, and the thin safety of her walls closed around her. Rachel did what she had done every hour and every sleepless night since the confrontation. She opened her phone, Joy's messages, Joy's profile, the little archive of a friendship that had grown over pages and weather. Her fingers flew over the screen. His account, she found, was gone, deactivated. It felt like a room someone had emptied while she was away. No photos, no last words, only the hole where his presence had been, a small, private collapse pressed against her ribs. Had she driven him away? Had he left for good? She scrolled through old messages, each one a tiny fossil of what had been. Jokes about rainy Suva streets, book recommendations, the harmless sharing of small kindnesses, the ache of loss blended with the hot guilt at the thought that she had been the cause. If he'd come all this way and then erased himself, she told herself, there was no way to find him, no bridge back across the ocean, no answer to the question of why. She put the phone down for a breath, then picked it up again. A nervous reflex, the screen lit with the familiar green circle of WhatsApp. A new story notification popped up, as casual and ordinary as a match struck in the dark. Her thumb hovered, then tapped. The status preview blossomed across the glass. A snapshot of a plain window, rain streaking the pane. A caption in small, steady text, "Traveling to Fiji." Rachel's chest tightened until breath hiccuped. Her fingers trembled around the phone, as if it were a fragile thing. The room seemed suddenly too small. The rain outside a drumbeat, counting off a single, impossible step. She read the line again, as if reading it twice might change its meaning. Then the screen went black, with the last frame of the image, and the question, waiting behind those few words, hung there, taut and dangerous. Did he mean to come to find her? Or had he come for something else entirely?